agree on the part I needed to share it, I was thinking, okay, they like to talk about unity. We need to be in unity. So I thought, you know how difficult it is for us to be in unity? In order for us to be in unity, we have to agree on two things. All right, are you ready for the two things? We have to agree that Yeshua followed the Torah. Can you agree with me that he followed the Torah? All right, we're halfway to unity. And the second thing we need to agree on is Yeshua didn't follow the ways of Babylon. Is that a hard sell? So if you can agree on those two things, it's simple. Come out of Babylon.
That's right.
But wait, you have to be convinced you're in Babylon. So just go look. Is it a Babylonian calendar? Yes or no?
Yeah.
There's no debate about it.
Nope.
So if it's a Babylonian calendar, are you really trying to tell me in the kingdom, when we take the Torah scroll out, and we say, out of Zion shall go forth the Torah, are you really going to try to tell me that when Yeshua is here and the Torah goes forth from Jerusalem, that Yeshua is going to advocate that following him and following Torah is following a Babylonian calendar? Are you really going to believe that? But you know, there are people now that's trying to argue and make that claim. It's staggering. And so, Yeshua said that the traditions of men make the word of God to have none effect.
Boy.
So it's so staggering that you would consider the thought the same way it's staggering that you would think that the law was nailed to the cross when you realize sin is the transgression of the law. It's like, it's not complicated. It's not rocket science.
No.
Okay? Babylonian calendar, that's not his character. I don't know if you ever thought about this, but when you're trying to study the Bible, when you're trying to study the Torah, what's your purpose? What's your goal? What's the reason why you're doing it? Can I tell you what the reason why you're doing it? You're trying to learn about God, who he is, his ways. In other words, you're only doing it to understand his character.
Yes.
And only when you understand his character can you get discernment, and you can say, is this behavior his character or not? So ask the question, is a Babylonian calendar fundamentally his character? No. And you know where we learn the principle? It's the very first Torah portion. Where in the garden there's the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. You know what the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is? It's mixing good and evil. So the English word Babylon, it comes from the Hebrew word Babel, which comes from the Hebrew word Balal. You know what Balal means? The root of Babylon, you know what it means? It means to mix. Babylon is mixture. So you learn in the garden, don't mix.
Don't.
So it's like, wait a second. Do you guys study the Torah portion week after week after week, year after year after year, and you haven't learned the lesson yet of don't mix? And so if you learn the lesson, don't mix, and then someone presents to you, it's a Babylonian calendar. Do you still got to go to school? Do you still need next week's Torah portion so you learn you don't mix? Or have you figured out you're not supposed to mix? And by the way, the Elijah of old, the historical Elijah, when he challenged the children of Israel over Baal worship, do you know what Baal worship is? It's mixing faith in the God of Israel with the ways of the nations.
That's right.
It says in 2 Kings chapter 17, verse 32 and 33, that the northern kingdom feared the Lord. It says they feared the Lord, Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. They were worshiping Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. But in their practices, in the way that they were following Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, then it gets stated they're worshiping Baal. What were they doing? They were mixing. So, it's called the sin of Jeroboam. It's called the sin of Jeroboam. So, 1 Kings in chapter 12. We're going to review the sin of Jeroboam, okay? Since I've given you the foundation. It says, verse 26, now Jeroboam said in his heart, now shall the kingdom return to the house of David. Verse 27, if this people go to do the sacrifice in the house of the Lord at Jerusalem, so I can replace those words with, if we obey God, because God said to do that, okay? Since God said to do that, we can say, if we obey God. All right. So now, who are the high priests in Israel at the time of Jeroboam in Jerusalem, in the temple? Who's the high priest? The Zadoks. What calendar are the Zadoks following? Are they following the Pharisaic calendar? There aren't any Pharisees. The Pharisaic sect did not exist in the days of Jeroboam. You got it? It's not difficult. So, what sect of the Jews had a doctrine of oral Torah? The Pharisees. What other sect had a doctrine of oral Torah? None. Oral Torah is a doctrine of the sect of the Pharisees. All right, so now, do the Pharisaic sect, does it exist in the days of Jeroboam? No. So is oral Torah as a doctrine being followed in the days of Jeroboam? No. So Jeroboam goes to Jerusalem. Why is he going to Jerusalem for? To keep the festivals. He's going to Jerusalem to keep the festivals. So if we've got to keep the festivals, when are we going to do the festivals? What calendar are we following? Is Jeroboam following a Babylonian calendar? No. He's going to be following the calendar that the Zadok priests are following. So if the Zadok priests are following a calendar, they told us about the Dead Sea Scrolls, what calendar are they following in the days of David and Solomon and into the days of Jeroboam? They're doing the priestly calendar, which was the calendar in Exodus chapter 16 that they're following. So, in other words, if we go to keep the festivals according to how the Zadoks are doing it and the high priesthood are doing it, if we keep the festivals according to the priestly calendar, you see how now we can write that into the thought process? Are you following me? So if we obey the Lord and keep the festivals according to the calendar that the Zadok priests are following, the priestly calendar, then shall the heart of the people turn again unto their Lord, even unto Rehoboam king of Judah, and they will kill me, and they will go again unto Rehoboam king of Judah. You know what those words mean? There's going to be division. He said, if we go to Jerusalem and keep the feast according to how the high priest Zadok are keeping the feast, it's going to create division. And so it says in verse 28, whereupon the king took counsel. Counsel about what? We can't have division. We can't have division. So in order so that there's not division, you know what he did in verse 31? He made priests of the lowest of the people. In other words, we're not going to follow the Zadok priests. We're going to reject the Zadok priests. And we're going to have our own system that's going to be a replacement of the Zadok priests. Because you know what Jeroboam wanted? He wanted unity under him. So, you know what one of the primary thoughts that are being said about the Qumran, about this teaching, about the calendar? We can't do it. You know why we can't do it? It'll create division. And are you trying to create division in the movement? Stay away from those people who are trying to create division. Division is bad. It's of the devil. Division is bad. And we're repeating and committing the sin of Jeroboam.
Wow.
So you know what the message has been to this movement in the last 25 years? Come out of the sin of Jeroboam.
That's right.
And where have we applied the sin of Jeroboam for the last 25 years? In the church. The church is mixing. The church is mixing Christmas and Easter and food. They're eating pig. They're mixing. The church is mixing. Don't commit the sin of Jeroboam. The church is mixing. But now we get over here, and we're going to take the label off, the wrapping paper that says Christian, and we're going to replace it, and we're going to put the wrapping paper, and it's going to say Jewish. Because the wrapping paper says Jewish, all of a sudden you have a change of opinion. If it's Jewish wrapping paper, maybe mixture's good. It's okay. I actually heard somebody say, well, some things in Babylon are good. Well, you know what the word some means? It means at least one. That's what the word some means. So if you're trying to tell me at least one thing in Babylon is good, I'll tell you one thing that the Babylonians do that's good. They eat. Because if you don't eat, you're going to die. And so they also breathe. And breathing's good too. So yeah, if you want to say some, but we're talking about religious practice here, okay? Okay, we're not to practice the religious practices of Babylon. Not that when they get up in the morning they put on their clothes. You know? We're talking about don't follow their religious practice. We're told in Revelation chapter 18, come out of Babylon unless you partake of her plagues. So if you're following a Babylonian calendar and you're supposed to come out of Babylon, you may not understand what it is, but the Lord is telling you there's a plague that you're not supposed to experience. And what might or could be the plague? Well, first let me tell you a principle. One day I came across somebody, this was probably 30 years ago. I was watching TBN at that time, 30 years ago, Trinity Broadcasting Network. And there was a person on there that I never heard of before. And his name was Miles Monroe. Never heard of Miles Monroe. But the other thing about Miles Monroe, one thing that he's famous for is he always talked about purpose. Remember I told you how my mind is wired about why and purpose? So I was listening to him one day, of course he's talking about purpose. And one of the things he said about purpose is, if you do not know the purpose of a thing, you'll abuse it. If you don't know what it's for, you'll abuse it because you won't do what it's for if you don't know what it's for. All right? So let's apply it to this movement. If we do not know the purpose of this movement, we'll abuse it. In other words, you'll think it's something that it's not if you don't know its purpose. So do you know what the purpose of the movement is? It's to prepare the body of Messiah. It's to prepare the bride of Messiah for his coming. That's the purpose of the movement.
Boom.
Okay? And that's actually Isaiah chapter 40, verse 3. Because you know why they went to the Qumran? In the Dead Sea Scrolls, it says why and how the Qumran was founded. And it was founded because, Isaiah 40, verse 3, they saw literally go into the Arba, so they went to the Arba, but they went there to prepare for the coming of the Messiah. They were founded on preparing themselves for the coming of the Messiah, and that's what Isaiah chapter 40, verse 3 is about. Prepare the way of the Lord. For who? Prepare for the coming of the Messiah. Who's supposed to prepare? The bride. Okay, so their purpose was to be prepared for the coming of the Messiah, and their purpose was founded on Isaiah chapter 40, verse 3. So our purpose in this movement, God's raised up this movement to prepare us for the coming of the Messiah. And who is it that he's preparing? He's preparing his bride. So we already have precedents that the preparatory message is Isaiah chapter 40, verse 3. So therefore, it's not possible for the bride to be ready without Isaiah chapter 40, verse 3. Not possible. And you know one of the major themes of the Qumran, what they endeavored to do on a daily basis? They endeavored to try to make themselves clean. So daily they had mikvahs. So let me read to you what's said about the bride